I was at St. Paul Church this morning with an interview with Bishop Kirby.
Yes.
And he was talking about the spirituality of young people as well.
I'm glad to hear that.
And how young people are coming back.
Right.
And they're bringing their families.
Right.
And he's seeing a resurgence in that.
Right.
So I think that's a movement that's coming throughout America where people are coming back to faith. And they're holding that as a tenement. And that's so important to have.
It is.
Because no matter what's going on,
right.
there's someone else in control.
That's right.
So I think the pieces that you've done are absolutely beautiful. And that more people need to hear them.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate that very much.
Yeah, Bishop Kirby, he's our property manager for a local boxing club.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned that to me.
Yeah, and so Sergeant Foster is kind of a connoisseur of that sport as well. So we're in the process of working with the city to open this gym up, and we're going to get Sergeant Foster back involved. He did some work in the 70s and 80s with the local boxing club. So Bishop Kirby is working with us to work with young people. And so, as Chuck was talking about, that's really where it starts. We have to develop these young people so that they have the same opportunities we have, if not a greater opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
If I might piggyback on that a little bit, Art, as far as boxing, Racine Boxing Club under Vince Stillman, I think I was like 40-some years with that club, and we started over at the Tyler Domer Center. It wasn't that at the time, in the basement, and Chief Carvino gave us room at City Hall Annex, and we went and we turned it into world-class boxing facilities that we hosted. One of the members of our club, Oliver McCall, was the heavyweight champion of the world. He knocked out Lennox Lewis. That may be before your time, I don't know.
A little bit, yeah.
But he knocked out Lennox Lewis to become the heavyweight champion of the world. We have Ronaldo Snipes, who fought Larry Holmes and was the first man to put him down. And we spent a lot of time in the state as far as Golden Gloves. That was one of the functions of community relations at the time. I was involved with them because my job was to get involved with community-based organizations to do what we can as a police department to show the kids that we were much a part of the community as they were. And I fell in love with boxing. I tried it myself, but I learned at an early age that it wasn't for me. So I got caught in a position that most people that know boxing, when they say you're counting light bulbs, that means you're laying on your back looking at the light bulb. And when somebody puts some smelling salt over your nose, you come to it and you see the light bulb. So, but yeah, boxing has always been one of my favorite things to do. And we had a lot of success at that. I've seen young kids that came to the Y. I mean, not the Y, I'm sorry. I'm old. They came to the boxing club. And they were, we put demands on them. You know, we had a guy that was the state champion. He was the reigning state champion. But he got caught with some marijuana. We wouldn't let him put on our colors to go back to defend his state title because we had told him, you know, that was a no-no. You had to get good grades. I mean, so it was not just a boxing program. It was a program where we kind of looked at the whole kid, the whole environment. If the parents couldn't pay, we paid. We provided transportation for them to get back and forth to the events. But like I said, behavior was a part of it too. If you came in contact with the police in a negative way, you would be dealt with. Vets didn't play that. I mean, we demanded that they be good, law-abiding citizens, that they do what they're supposed to do. They get good grades. If their report card didn't reflect that they was going to school, if they was skipping school, then that would be some sort of punishment that they would be dealt out to them for that behavior. So that was a good thing, I think, that we were involved with Head Start. Community relations was basically looked upon as the guy, I'm going to say what the guys used to call us. They used to say we were glorified social workers. They said, you guys are social workers with guns. You know, they really didn't look at us as being police officers because we wasn't out writing tickets, arresting people. We would go and spend the time to try to get to the root cause of the problem. You know, if they had an issue that it might have been alcoholism, you know, we would hook them up with someone that dealt with that. Human Services, the A Center, somebody that could help them, and we would, you know, work with them also to try to eliminate that problem. So we would eliminate them from being a problem for the police, you know, on a continual basis. So,
Sergeant, let's go back to what you said. You said you guys are looked at as being glorified social workers.
yeah.
So when you shared that, I was thinking, a lot of people don't know this, but Sergeant Foster was one of the first people on the police department. He was on the board of directors at the then Franklin Neighborhood Center.
Mm-hmm.
But then he and Dr. Gilmore and some others. And then I came along maybe 10 years later. I was on the board. It was the Bray Center by that time. But here is a simple fact. Young people, and Chuck can attest to this, young people need guidance.
Oh, yeah.
And so this whole glorified social worker piece, people think that's not public safety, but it is. It's just preventive.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and so you have to ask yourself, like, would you prefer to invest in young people before they get into the system or afterwards? And I think we all know the cost to incarcerate a young person is like astronomical, right? And so if you're doing the math, like the preventive, you know, intervention just makes more sense. And so everything that you guys did in the 70s, like I literally grew up in the Franklin Neighborhood Center, you know, as did many others who went on to lead successful lives. And who knows where we would have been if it wasn't for, you know, George Bray, Delta Moore, Mr. White, you know, and so many others. Chuck Tyler came along in that with the Southside Center. So yeah, so for people who don't understand why it's important to do that kind of work, it's just preventive maintenance, you know, before you because once you get in the system, it's really hard to get out.
The majority of the work that we've done in community relations were basically trouble with kids, neighborhood problems, landlord tenants. We've done a lot of work with probate court. And like I said, we were mandated to be a part of a lot of the community-based programs like Head Start, like I said, the Boxing Club is one. I can't think of too many more at this particular time, but it just gave us kind of a wide range of movement in the community, you know, where we would make contact. And when there were situations that went down, they would call us out. Like one time we had an unfortunate situation where a young man shot and killed, well, he had killed his aunt by stabbing her. And the police officer had to shoot the offender. And naturally, people in the community got up in arm about that. So, you know, in those cases, we would go out in the community, give them the facts of what happened, try to explain, try to keep a lid on different things. So, you know, it wasn't all nightmarish times at the job. I really enjoyed the job because I got a personal reward for helping people. That's more of my nature than arresting somebody. We tried our best. You almost had to force us to rescue more community relations, you know. But it was some good times.
Has the community outreach changed since your time in the community relations department? Because you mentioned the boxing club and other organizations. now in modern day, have those organizations gone away, or are they still there? Just
Well, the Racine Boxing Club is going away, but Art here, thank goodness, started up a new boxing club, and I hope to be a part of that because it's still one of my first love as far as sports. As far as some of the community organizations now, I haven't been up to par with because I've been gone for 23 years. I've been retired for 23 years, so I really don't know too much about what's out there now.
okay.
Yeah, I can share a little bit. I'll connect a couple dots. Because of what they did in the 70s, when we decided to do a new boxing club, we're just replicating what was already there. And then Mr. Tyler here had a music program back in the 70s where he nurtured a lot of young people in the arts. And they took a group of people. Chuck has so many stories he can't tell them all. But he wrote a grant through the Wax Fund. They took some young people out to New York, and Dennis Clay, Willie Atterbury, Claude Hamilton. These are well-known musicians in Racine, and they still perform to this day. And Lee Mayfield's with that group at one time. And so what we did is to your question, are some of these things still going on? Well, we got together with Mr. Tyler. We approached the United Way, their Equity Innovation Fund, and we drafted a $75,000 grant to put a new digital music recording studio across the street at the RAL School, Racine Alternative Learning School. An amazing thing happened. We put the studio there because they have a lot of opportunities with some of the students that are challenged there. So we put it at that facility because a lot of music programs are no longer in schools. And so when we did that, and Mr. Tyler was instrumental, we simply replicated what he was doing in the 70s at a higher level. This is a grant to Mackenzie Scott. She donated $5 million to the local United Way, so we were able to tap into this Equity Innovation Fund. And so we go to the school. We think we're going to work with so-called at-risk students, and so that worked fine. Some of the students that were transferred to RAL because of behavioral issues or whatever, so we had a chance to really tap to the creative side. But what we didn't know is that some of the students on the autism spectrum literally gravitated towards the studio, and we had so-called nonverbal students singing, playing instruments, composing. We were mind blown, So then we went back to the United Way to say, hey, listen, something miraculous happened while we were there. We found out that who knew, right? And then I started doing some research, and apparently it was me that didn't know, because there's a lot of folks who are on the autism spectrum that are just musical genius, right? It's just they communicate in a different way. And so now we went back to the United Way to say, okay, now we're going to need some visually, stimulating instruments and things that are designed specifically for students on the spectrum. And so, but the point is, to answer your question, whether it's the boxing club, the music studio, and some other things that we're working on, we understand you can invest in a new detention facility, which you need those resources, right? But you have to also invest in just developing these young people so that they never have to experience the detention center.
Mm-hmm. I know one of the stories I did last year, and we had them on for storytelling night, was the Rap Kids Ministry. And one of their tenements was, we're going to love on these kids. Yeah. We're going to show them God. And that way, they don't have to get to that place of being arrested or even beyond that. DJ, he's one of the kids, not one kid, he grew up with rap kids. And when I called him for the interview, he went, I've never been arrested. I've never been in handcuffs. And it's all because of this program. And unfortunately, that program is no longer going. But it sounds like Racine really needs an upheaval in that, whether it's faith-based or not, just having mentors for these kids throughout the generations of you're loved, you're supported, this is the right way to live, this is how to be successful. This is to help you, and to have strong people leading that initiative.
No, I agree with you because you made me think about one-on-one. The time I spent with young people one-on-one. Matter of fact, I didn't even take a Sunday break. I would get up at 7 o'clock in the morning and get home maybe 7 o'clock at night. But I got to know them one-on-one. And I used to see kids, heck, from the police department at times because I would not kick anybody out of the community center. You know, the ones that they thought should be out there, they could arrest. I wouldn't, I wanted the opportunity to save them. And make a long story short, there was a young man who did something that he shouldn't have done. He was locked up for 30-some years, and he finally got out. And when he got out, he came to me and he said that I wish I would listen to you. He said, I read all kinds of holy books and the Quran, and what you were sharing with us, I should listen to that. Oh my God, I might. And but it was like I didn't know it. I just took the time out to share my experiences, to listen to them. You know, and when you listen to people, then you come up with an answer yourself. Sometimes you don't have an answer at all until you start listening, and you find a way. So I would say that one-on-one with young people, we can do that. That's going to make a big difference in their lives.
Absolutely. And I think social media plays a hand in that too, of not having that because you're looking at a screen and you're reading, you're not hearing a tone, you're not face to face. So I think that's had a large impact as well.
Right.
Were any of you involved in the, is it the Cops and Reading House that's on?
Cops and Kids, so.
Yes, that one, thank you.
Yeah, so indirectly, this gives me an opportunity to talk about some other people on the Department of Disability work. Steve Hurley, who was the deputy chief, who went on to be the chief of police at the town of Geneva, he and I started what was called the Cops and Kids organization. Right, this is pre-Julia Burney, and this is in 1995. It's actually called Racine Police Athletic Association, but we would do Cops and Kids events, Cops and Kids skiing, Cops and Kids fishing. You know, so under Chief Foley's leadership, he gave us the latitude to do these types of things. And so this is 1995. The Racine Police Athletic Association was formed. Jerry Bell Lucas is a part of it. Al Days, Carlos Lopez, Larry Ivey, a few others. And we basically, the irony of the story is the replication. I replicated, imitation is the greatest form of flattery. So Larry, they did this boxing club in the 70s, so I did a boxing club, because I knew the effect that they had. Dumbo Orr used to take kids to the Shed Aquarium every year for 20 years. Dumbo Orr organized this trip to go to took these kids. I would see these buses lining up in front of the police department to go to Chicago. I mean, this happened for 20 years. She passes away. There's no more trips to the Shed Aquarium. Well, I never organized a trip to go to the Shed Aquarium, but I organized the Cops and Kids trip to go to East Troy to take the kids fishing. Ken Lumpkin went with us from the Insider News one year. He had never been on a boat before. To see young people and seniors interact like that was like literally priceless, And so through replicating these whole things, the spirit of the war is still alive. So we did this for Cops and Kids, fishing trips, ski trips. We did all that stuff for like 22 years total until my retirement. We did it a couple of years. And so the reading center came like probably 97 after Julia had that experience where she went into Western books, golden books, and saw that because books were bound upside down, whatever, the covers were wrong, they were going to throw all these books out. So when she was able to get the warehouse to have the center, and Oprah donated $100,000 to rehab it, Julia didn't have a 501c3 at that time, but the Racine Police Athletic Association had a 501c3. So, as she was, that takes months to get that all together. So, as she was getting her paperwork in order for her to receive donations and to be, a nonprofit organization. We just incubated the Cops and Kids Reading Center under the Racine Police Athletic Association. So sometimes the lines get blurred. She went on to go on to Oprah show and CBS News, and so we're a little more local, and her reach was more global, national, and beyond. So but indirectly, the first Cops and Kids events were done before the Reading Center, but then the Reading Center really took off.
Yeah, I can recall before Thelma got her car, she walked all over the city in the cold, snowing, and helping people. I never forgot that. I was so impressed by it.
And when she got her car, she didn't drive much faster than she was walking.
I just add to what Art was saying about those trips to Chicago. I went all 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And each year I went, I swore I wasn't going back next year. Because can you imagine having 120 or 30 kids, and you're down there in Chicago, and you're around at the Field Museum and the Sheriff Aquarium, because we went to both. And there's so many other kids. How can you tell yours from there? And you count them and you say, look, you guys got to stay together. And you go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And you have 11. Where's the 11 of them? You look around and you go, because you don't want to come back to Racine without one of those kids, So it was a challenge, but each year I said, I'm never going back. But next year, Mrs. Oracle, I was on the bus, going down with those kids, and then Officer Friendlies would go, and then we came up with a thing that we would give them Officer Friendly caps to put on. That way we can identify. He said, look, whatever you do, don't take those caps off your head. Keep the caps on your head. But you were still all day long going. It was to the point where I was thinking about putting plastic handcuffs on. Because you're so nervous that you're going to leave one. And I mean, even on the bus, man. And by the end of the day, you know your group real well. But like I said, every year I went, and I enjoyed it. One year we went to Sears Tower. They invited us down, and we spent the whole day at the Sears building. And the kids would go out on the observation deck, and they would say, "Come on, Sergeant Foster." I would hug an elevator, like, "Who knows?" And they're laying out on the glass, like, "Hey, come back here," because if they got there in a panic, someone else was going to have to go get them because I wasn't going. It was just the height, and from up there you could just see for miles. And those kids were just, they were fearless. I mean, they were having a good time. And sometimes I was on the trip that they would take during the summer, like when we would go fishing. That's the only trip. And they took me the time we went fishing, and they went into the barn. And they had cows and chickens and whatever.
So what he's talking about, so there was a lady, just a beautiful spirit.
Oh, yeah.
Kathy Tober Farms in East Troy. Near the where's that place where you get the Elegant Farm.
The Elegant Farm,
so
yeah.
Kathy Tober owns a farm. So Kathy Tober met Dave Boss. Dave Boss was a lieutenant community policing. So they were friends. So Dave was explaining to Kathy, who lives in East Troy, on a farm, a working farm. And so she said, she said to Dave Boss, "Why don't you bring the kids out here?" So that's how we wound up at the East Troy Divine Word Seminary to fish. But then Kathy wanted to give them, like Sergeant Foster said, a lot of these young people never left innocent. So we bring them to Kathy Tober's farm. And this is a working farm. Like there's cows, there's chickens, and all this stuff. And we have pictures that we could share, from 20 plus years of these trips. It was just amazing. Captain Tober would invite us out there and give the kids ice cream, and it was just an amazing experience. I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. You were asking if some of the initiatives continue to this day. Well, Jerry Freeman, Todd Dias, and Tree Small are some of the early COP officers. Jerry's house was at 18th and Mead. So Jerry, I don't know if Jerry came up with it or Todd, or who, but the bottom line is they had this back to school haircut event. And so for young people who would get bullied at school because they didn't, have nice haircuts at the beginning of school, they would give these young people a fresh start for school with a fresh cut. And that was something that happened in the 90s, right? And then, so one of the newer COP officers, he's not with the department anymore, but James Pettis, was able to basically reach back and bring that, into, modern day. So sometimes you can, looking forward, you have to look back. And then you have to honor the people that were the pioneers, whether it's, Second Dice, who's Top Dice's uncle, or, Del Moore. There's a lot of great things that happened in the 70s that hopefully the younger officers are paying attention to because it made a difference. And really quickly, when Larry said that some of the officers would laugh at them and say, you glorify social workers. Not so much, how many people you put handcuffs on. It's probably how many people did you pour into so that you didn't need to put handcuffs on.
I didn't mind being called that because that was my brain of law enforcement. I believe that police officers should have discretion. And I think that's more than one way to solve a problem. When I became a sergeant in patrol, I would have meetings with my officers. Each one of us each sergeant had 15 guys in their squad. And we would always leave the station because I didn't want nobody listening in to our meeting. But I would say, hey, look, you're out there, you're your boss. Basically, the city hired you because you're smart enough to work the job, carry a gun, that you might have to take somebody's life, so they can trust you with discretion. You have discretion. If you don't want to write a ticket, if you can resolve a problem without writing a ticket, I'm never going to write you up for not having, because at one time that was high and low.
So expectations.
Right.
You don't want to say the word quarter.
Oh, yeah. Okay. He said it. But yeah, I would never do that to them in my office. I wanted them to decide how they want to handle each call that they stopped or each call they went on. If they needed my advice, they would call me over and we would discuss it. Sometimes it was left up to me to make the final decision. But usually, I always included them like what you should do. Basically, don't bother me and I won't bother you. You do what you do unless you cause some problems. You won't have no problem out of me. And that's the kind of way I like to approach, officers there. Mature individuals, they have a big responsibility. I mean, to, like I said, even to the point that you carry instruments on your side that can delight somebody, that can kill somebody, you know what I'm saying? So you got to be able to trust those people, or hopefully be able to trust them to make the right decisions without being told that they know within themselves what's right, what's wrong. They got discretion. You got their back if they're doing good things. If you do bad things, then that's when you have to deal with me. But I didn't have so many problems like that.
And I think that's a really good way of leading people and shaping them and going, this is what you're called to do. You're in dangerous situations that not anybody really wants to be in, and you have to make split judgment calls. And this is the support that you're going to get from your boss and from the upper echelon, as it were. And I think that really helps with decision making, knowing that they don't have to meet a quota and they don't have to carry out certain measures that are expected of them, but they can prioritize other things.
Well, basically they don't have to be in competition with other officers who are high-spirited, you want to say, quick with the mouth and the hands kind of situations. But, you know, you could tell when an officer would stop a car, and he end up arresting somebody for this or that kind of stuff. If you track them and you see that it's happening over and over and over again, you need to maybe sit down and talk to that person because he is, you know, he can be a real big problem. There's something going on that anytime you do a traffic stop, you're arresting somebody for this or that kind of stuff. But I didn't have that so much happen in my squad. Not that I had all the perfect guys, but I had at least 12 or 13 of them out of the 15. So we got along well, you know, because I treated them like men, not the way he was supposed to be treated. I didn't say, well, follow him around. I had I don't want to, you know, just hog the conversation, but I had a lieutenant once that said to me, he said, Sergeant Foster, you're a softy. And I said, what do you mean by that? I'm a softy. He says, you go out to coffee with these guys, you go to the squad parties, you guys go to ball games, and we'd be out in the parking lot before, you know, going to tailgate and all that. And you're just a softy. I said, well, look, if our lives depend on each other, can't we at least have some fun together? You know what I'm saying? I mean, hell, we might get in a situation where my life might depend on them or how they respond, and not have to think about it. And I said, I remember when that SOB did this to me, and all, you know. I mean, if that was necessary, it was necessary. But if it wasn't necessary, I'm not going to be trying to be punitive when there was no reason for it. And he didn't like that. And he said, well, I would ride up to the corner, and I would peek down. I said, yeah, I saw you. I said, that's why none of the guys really particularly care for you. If the fact that you're going to go that far to the call, why not go down and see if they need some assistance? If you're going to sit on the corner and watch them like a hawk, waiting to see if they're going to do something wrong so you can pounce on them. They saw you. Yeah, we did because he was my side of the door. I saw him. And we had a name for him, which I won't mention. He's going on to his reward, God bless him. But anyhow, you know, you just have to treat guys like me. And then you got to treat the people right. You got to treat them with respect. We're paid by these people. And people say, oh, thank you for your service. And my response to that is, I appreciate it, but I got paid. And I got paid well. So you thank me when you pay me, but I appreciate the fact that you're saying you thank for the service that we provided for the city of Racine. And I think the new officers today, they're dealing with some new challenges that we didn't have to deal with. I won't even get into that because it's been a while since I've been gone, but I see it, I hear about it, I know some of the fellows, I still have communication with them. But you're not a hero just because you got a job. You get paid. You went down and signed up for a job. It's if you do a heroic deed, then you're a hero. If you know what I mean, and I just leave it like that because I don't want to have it, I don't retire. I'm just But that's just the way I feel about policing. I think sometimes people praise police officers or officers get upset, but they know what the job is when they apply for it. You're not dealing with, I would say, the model says 90% of the things that you deal with as an officer is negative. You know, family trouble. You get there, the husband and wife is fighting, the kids fighting, and then you have to handle one of the persons that are fighting each other, then they start fighting you. You know?
Yep.
So you deal with a lot of negative situations, so you know that. You're not working, you're working with people, all kinds of people from whole city of Racine. So that's what you got to be prepared for. And if you're not prepared for it, and you don't be called some names, if you got a thin skin and you can't take a name calling, hey, you're in the wrong position. You need to go and get a job working with a computer or something. Not people.
Oh, it's not like that.
We work with computers.
Well, yeah, but they don't curse.
We get called a lot of things.
I mean, I'm saying the computers don't curse at you, right?
Oh, yeah,
But they don't call you names.
People on the other side.
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
Well, I've got a couple of questions for wrapping up, but was there anything else that we wanted to touch on history-wise or anything like that?
This Chuck Tyler is the resident historian, and so, I just think it's appropriate to just give him as much space as possible, because whenever, usually, like, he and I will sit at Panera, because that's like his sanctuary, his second sanctuary. He has a personal one at his house, and whenever I go to Panera to hang out with Chuck, like, I'm going to learn something. So, yeah, I have to give him as much space. He's modest and he's soft-spoken, but it's kind of like E.F. Hutton. Like, when he speaks, you gotta listen.
Well, I reflect on my past, and it makes me think about when my mother passed away when I was 5 years old. And I didn't understand death at that time, so it hit me until I saw them lower her in the grave. And I said, man, what am I going to do about my mother? And since that time, I've been living my visions for direction. And I still do. Everything I do with a vision. And there's a process in the vision where it becomes reality. And that's what I do. That's how I help myself. That's how I help people overall. Also, I believe in spiritual connection. When I was over in Japan, and after the war, the Americans were hating on Japanese people on the base. And I didn't do that. And the Japanese people who worked there felt my spirit. So they invited me to their village, where they didn't invite Americans to their village, but I was honored to come to their village and spend time with them. Socialize, play baseball, I love baseball. To me, that's the power of spirituality. It covers all races, color, and it works. However, I'm thinking about the presidency and politics, and I'm thinking about nothing's really working for them like they want. Like we want. But it's going to take that individual spirituality connected with one another, individual one-on-one. It's going to do it. You may not see it overnight, but you're going to see the results later on. And this is me. This is what I want to generate and to do over the years. And I've been blessed because God has allowed me to connect with spiritual people. And once you connect with a spiritual person, the sky will limit. The trust is there. And that's where we come in. So I love you guys, man, because you're there for each other.
Chuck's grandson, Jerome King, was an officer, and he was one of the first officers we installed at Park High School to be a school-based community policing officer. And we treated the school kind of like its own ecosystem, right, within the city. So the first 3 years that Jerome was there, they reduced student citations and arrests by 43%, going back to what Sergeant Foster was saying. because they manage crisis in a different way. A lot of people don't know this, but like the teen brain isn't even really developed until after age 20, right? Fully developed. So you would have situations in the school that would be like more behavioral, but they would be criminalized, right? And so even a situation where a student doesn't want to give up their cell phone, and so the teacher is in a physical struggle with them, and then now you have a disorderly conduct charge on your record. So Jerome King goes to the school, and again we reduce arrest citations by 43% in the first 3 years, and so got to the point where Unified was so impressed with Jerome's work that they created a position for him, and now he's got a position as Director of Safety and Security within the Unified system. So he's not just a part. So the Racine Police Department, unfortunately, lost a great officer, but the district gained a diplomat that understands that arresting people is not always the answer. Now, Sergeant Foster touched on this. There are times when all else fails, you have to do what you have to do, and then there's some people that need to be arrested, deserve to be arrested, will be arrested. That's just not everybody. And so you have to be able to have the spirit of discernment to tell the difference, and that's what Chuck speaks of quite a bit. And so it's not an accident that his grandson would have that disposition and discipline. His father, James King, was a firefighter. Del Moore was also instrumental in that. And so we're blessed. This community is blessed. Beyond it's Black History Month, and we're celebrating some accomplishments. A lot of these things don't happen just because Black people wanted them to happen. I know there are many people beyond Black culture that signed on to guys like Barney Nellis. There's just so many people that marched along with these guys and done more so that this community could be better. And then my swearing in is just evidence, the fruit of that work that happened in the 60s and 70s. If you look at the swearing in ceremony, it wasn't a black fest. You see all shades of people at that event. And it really showed how far the city could come. Now that doesn't mean it's not without struggle, because there were still struggles behind the scenes, but overall, we look at how the community came together to support history is really something to really cherish.
You remember Squirt Bailey, right?
Yeah.
And Squirt Bailey had a reputation where nobody wanted to be around. He used to fight all the time, outside of the community center. And when he came to the community center, I never kicked him out. Somebody wanted me to kick him out. And even Squirt didn't understand that. He didn't trust many people. To make a long story short, even when he got in trouble, he went to prison for about 8, 9 years, shot somebody. I was visiting with Sister Rosita, never gave up on him. And pretty soon, Squirt told me, he said to the man, he said, Chuck, he said, I love you so much I'll die for you. And that's the power of love. I didn't plan it that way. That's how powerful love is. If you love somebody, if somebody messes with you, I love you, I want to take you where I can. That you're still here with me. But that's just that's an example of when people feel your love, and they'll go beyond what they have to do to be there for you. That's how I try to run the community center. I was director over there. Matter of fact, I didn't want to move out of the community center. I got promoted, and I didn't want to stay, because I knew that I was getting promoted to a lot of politics. And I just want to be there with the people. But I'm glad I got promoted, but I kind of resisted that for a while.
God called you to something else.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I know why. Yeah, I know.